ever so slightly, mate.
Yeah, I'll fucking breathe or I fucking want you little fucking little toe rag. You fucking
Just start it like that. Just start it like
tell
that.
me once again, I'll fucking
Like an
that loud
absolute,
enough?
I say little red rag to a bull then, literally.
Yeah. I'm not in a good mood. I've been in quite
Maybe
a
we
bad
can
mood
perk you up,
for
mate.
quite
Who
some
knows?
time. Do you ever get those days you're just fucking sick of it? Like sick of everything?
God, life's relentless, isn't it?
It is, man. And it's like I had such a fun Saturday. Sunday was like fine, it was nice, and then this like just life admin, like paying council tax, fucking sorting the bins, doing everything.
It's enough to take the shine off anything.
I
It's
know.
just so fucking boring.
I mean, quite a privileged position. Like we're not like some poor Iranian bastard who just had his like house blown to pieces. But
it's
it
just the same.
sometimes.
It's just as much, just as traumatic.
I wake up at like 5 a.m. I check my phone and it's like, oh, good, everything's awful.
Another war.
Yeah, and just like, oh, is it? Maybe I probably should stop like just devouring it. Anyway, my intro is going to be Chris Tells Wales, the podcast that never fails to introduce you to people like Beavis and Butthead, the Cramp Twins, Dingo and Ringo, and then Enos and Inus, or whatever these fucking nonsense lads you're going to tell me about today is. There you go.
Love it. Yeah, very well done. I prefer
Very
the
well done.
Off the cuff. Just don't you fucking speak to me like that again. It's a brief glimpse into how you treat me behind the curtain for all the listeners.
Oh, what am I going to do with you? Actually, I might switch to video recording just in case we look gorgeous.
Just on the off chance, yeah. We love matching as well. A couple of white lads. A couple of 30-year-old, mid-30s white lads.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of white lads. We should probably explain for the listeners. We both wear white t-shirts.
Yeah, sorry, I thought you'd already chucked the... I thought that was the perfect time going like, flick on the cam as we went, couple of white boys.
It has just...
I was on about clobber and fashion, not ethnicity. Although we are also still couple of white accurate. Boys. Yeah.
It'd be really funny if someone who'd never seen what we look like thought we were... they thought we were like Jamaican.
Yeah, it's like... You know when you hear like a song...
Nigeria.
And then you just picture what the artist is like. Like, do you remember hearing Rag and Bone Man?
Oh, yeah, dude.
100% thought that was a black guy, right?
Yeah.
And then when he turned, I was like, a neck beard, a white
like
neck beard. You look like a butcher.
Boy.
Yeah. No wonder you know what the Rag and Bones are. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
he's quite good, don't he? Do
you think anyone's in any danger of that? Thinking like they turn on the cam, the visual, and they go, oh, couple of mid-30s white guys that had never guessed it.
Who liked history? What? No, they probably thought we were two like lads from the West Indies.
Yeah. Is that a rum in that beautiful beverages? Pure mixer.
Pepsi. Yeah, it's pure mixer.
Straight mixer. I can't believe it.
I've gone straight mixer. I'm sorry. What have you had?
Fair enough. Oh, I'm on the Brew Dogs, mate. In honour of their demise, of course. But in the classic Cymru fucking
Cymru,
cubby,
little cubby. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I had like a really big one Saturday, and not in the best headspace, and sometimes booze.
It takes you a while when you've had a biggie, doesn't it? To
but also. On. This isn't just on the Saturday. This is just a sad period. Sometimes it's going to like melancholic mode, and work's like busy. It's like there doesn't seem to be any joy or hope left, and they can really get to you. And I got no annual leave for a bit. I got nothing like.
Nothing to fucking look forward to.
Well, I know even saying that's not fair because I have got things to do. But like, do you know what I mean? Just sometimes it all just becomes a bit much.
Yeah, I know what you mean. A bit much. It's like work. If work's shit, but there's other stuff going on, that's okay. But then if work's shit, you clock off work, and then you just got to look at another place has been bombed, is it?
Yeah.
Or like, the world's going to shit, is it? Oh, great.
And then you got to do like life admin. You got to go fucking do things. You got to pay for stuff. You got to fucking just constant. It's like, can everyone just have like a week off and just shut up?
Like you read about, it's down. Like, another like cabal of really horrible, morally fucking bankrupt people have just gotten away with it again. Yeah. And it's like, you got to take the car to the MOT now. Like
exactly.
I did earlier, and I was like, can the MOT wait?
Yeah. And then it's like, I got to go fucking pick up my old bike and go see my family and all that, and just check in on everyone. And it's like, oh my God, everything is just...
Does it ever stop?
I know. So I think it's going to stop a bit this weekend, but I know what I'll do. I'll just have a fucking I get drunk on the weekend, and then the fucking spiral will continue.
The anxiety will start all over again.
Yeah.
I'm in a bit of a repeating pattern at the moment, a holding pattern, you might say, right?
Yeah.
Because work is stressing me out, and like you said, just the general life admin.
Yeah. I generally think it's okay for us to be a bit stressed, because I know it's not affecting us specifically, but having to read the news every day, like Donald Trump just called Keir Starmer a queer or something. Yeah. So it's always like, oh, what
can
well.
The thing is, that might as well be the headline, a queer or whatever. Yeah. It's so stupid. And, we've got, I might have to cut this out, but like, obviously, we got family in Dubai, and like, there's fucking missile debris. Like fucking hitting the ground. All right, they're okay. Yeah, nothing's bad's happened to them. But it's like the fact that they're even having to deal with that. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's just fucking it's all just gone to shit. So I'm in a bit of a holding pattern where like I can't be asked with like when all this is going on. My thing with like work is, what's the fucking point?
I know that's the other thing, isn't it? You just think, well, maybe no one will be here this time.
I'm going to work for 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. 7 days a week. I fucking got it wrong twice then. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, even. Right? I get 2 days a week to myself, and then it's like to do what I want to do, and it's like, well, there's a fucking pedo cabal running the world, and they're not doing, getting any consequences. There's wars going on. People getting blown up for what? I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Price is going to go up again.
Price is going to go up.
Guess what? Oil's going up. Gas is going up.
Yeah, we're all getting fucked again. Yeah. And it's like, oh, can you make that 9 o'clock meeting? And I want to go, why?
Why? When you hear something like that, you're like, have you lost your mind? Have you looked out the window? Have you looked how awful everything is?
No, I'm not coming to the meeting. And what I'm going to do instead is crack a fucking cold can. It's the only thing that gives me fucking solace.
That's what I keep thinking. That's why I'm holding off, because if I just have a booze, and I just think that's
well, I was just about to say, what's going to happen tonight now is I was like, I had a bit of a heavy weekend and everything, as I usually do. But I was like, I won't have too many tonight or anything. And I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'll just enjoy myself. But then I know tomorrow I'm going to be like even more like sad and bitter and everything, because I'll be today with a hangover, and I got so many meetings tomorrow.
You just it only keeps you happy for that evening, and then the next day you're like, oh great, I have to deal with all this and be hungover.
It's worth it, isn't it?
Yeah, but
every time it's worth it.
That's what I was thinking. This weekend, I was like, I'll have a dry weekend. And I was like, everything's awful. Why not have at least some solace?
Like on the Wolf of Wall Street, where he thinks he's going to die on that yacht because he sailed into a storm, and he was like, "You need to go fetch my drugs, because like I'm not going to die sober."
Yeah,
that's what I'd be like. I think I'd be like, "Give me a couple of fucking swigs of Barty or something like that before I go."
I believe that too dangerously. I keep justifying all that. I'm like, well, we will all be dead.
How many times I can say to the wife, like, Iran could be bombing us at any second. I'll have a couple more just in case.
Just in case, and bloody hell. Anyway, anything fun? Anything nice we can talk about?
Fun.
I'm sure everyone feels the same, though. I do think it's ridiculous to feel like earlier, someone was telling me they preferred their spreadsheet over a Miro board I had made for for some social media content. And I was like, sure, whatever.
Even if we weren't on the brink of World War III, I would say, fucking kill yourself.
And then it was like, do you want to edit this? I was like, no, I don't. Fine. Just like, I know what I'm doing. It doesn't matter if you don't know what I'm doing. It's just, just stop pretending that what we do is important, because nothing matters.
It does. Nothing matters, and what we do is worthless.
Like friendships matter, like relationships, fucking work means bollocks. I think this is one of those moments where,
if you were a labourer, like you're a builder, right? Even if you're a brickie, for example, right? You are producing something real.
Yeah, you're making
a home for someone there. That's legit. Like we work in fucking marketing, communications, whatever you want to call that. That is a made up job.
It's a made up job. It's pathetic.
It is a made up job. It doesn't. I mean. Yeah, thanks for paying me for doing the made-up job and everything. I'm a cog in the system.
It's quite important.
Yeah, but we're all just lying to each other. Like they go in. Well, that's it. You got to have that role, haven't you? Oh yeah, of course you. And just like you've got to have your role as well.
I think the death of industry meant that we're all just doing fucking nonsense. Like there is no real.
What was meant to happen? I strongly believe this was when the difference between having a typewriter and having to write things yourself, right?
Yeah.
That was meant to be you can work half as much, produce just as much, but they said no, you've got to work exactly the same, produce twice as much output, right? And that's just gone on and on. And it's now at a point where we've gone well past the position where the majority of people, I think, could not have a job and like contribute in a different way and just be paid to exist and produce, I don't know, art, creativity, something like that. And you'd only have the really podcasts. Well, yeah, actually podcasts, because it's like, something. And we all get paid like a universal basic income, and only the people who produce real fucking material things that matter are the ones who get actually paid for stuff.
Yeah,
and then
we've gone full communist.
Oh, I know.
We've gone full commies.
People just couldn't handle it, and they went, "No, we'll make up jobs for shit."
Yeah, I know, and also the people who do all the fucking middle management, all the fuck. I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of it, But what's something fun? What's a jovial thing we can talk about?
Do you want to hear, just to make you laugh? Do you want to hear about me accidentally signing myself up for work I absolutely don't want to do?
Yeah, it was like hearing you be furious about that.
So we've got a new. I got a new manager. I think I mentioned to you last time we went out the other day. She's lovely, really nice, but it's like new manager, fresh new eyes on the whole program and project and all that sort of stuff. Wants to do things differently, and I'm very much a guy who does not like to change his ways, especially when I've like sort of worked out the ideal like DOS to work ratio. It's like, don't make me do things different, because then that ratio might slip. That ratio might slip to a level I'm not comfortable with. Anyway, so we're going to this conference thing in a couple of weeks, and she was like, "Oh well, it's like, I'm thinking one of the activities can be after all the like fucking boring presentation and stuff is we'll do like a work themed quiz." Fucking kill me. And she said, "Who'd be up for that?" And I was like, just trying to be nice because she knew and everything. I was like, yeah, I mean, I'd be up for doing a quiz or something like that. She took that as I would be up for doing the quiz, making the quiz, doing the quiz, hosting the quiz.
Yeah.
And so I got a message not that long after going like, looking forward to like what you come up with the quiz and blah, 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 blah. And it was like, right, here's my choice now do I just go along with it, not back my own stuff my corner and just go, okay, I've put myself in this position. But I absolutely said, look, when I clarified, as like, just to clarify, when I said I'd be up for doing the quiz, I meant partaking in the quiz. And I was even lying then. I didn't even say that. I didn't say that part, but I absolutely was lying then. Yeah. So I've managed to get out of it. Apparently I've just got to help with like doing the questions and stuff like that maybe now, and not hosting it. But then she went, oh, that was all cleared up. And it's like, fine, done. And she said, so yeah, the timings for this will be, after everything finishes about like 6:30, 7:15, you'll have from then till like 9:30 to like do the quiz and stuff.
In the evening?
And I was like, night? In the night, after I'm not being paid to be at this place. And I was thinking, I said to him, I was like, there better be a bar there or something.
Where
like
is it
in this place. It's up in Bangor. And it's at some conference centre. And if I don't have a beer in my hand by like 6:30, I'm going to be
just kill yourself.
A moody boy.
Kill them.
Yeah. I'm gonna fucking murder suicide everyone there. And by that I mean I'll go, I got a headache, and I'll go back to my room. They'll see me coming back from the offie with a fucking plastic bag full of tins, sit in the room on my own.
I've been joining my new Bridgen gym. It is the funniest gym in the world. It is the most.
I do love the thing.
For people who don't know about Bridgen, it's pure like it's the start of like the valleys, and it's like proper lovely people. But everyone here is roided up. They're like bright orange. They've all got like massive like steroid arms. But the music in my gym is so fucking loud. This is what the music in my gym.
Enjoy. You send like voice notes from there, but it's not you talking. It's just
hear anything.
Absolute, the deepest bass, like
they
vibrate in your fucking
I'm not joking.
microphone.
They have about 10 different versions of "Numb" by Linkin Park. It's just constantly like playing.
Amazing.
And it's they'll always start off really slow, and then it's like,
you know, I'd hate it as well. I think I would really hate it. And like, I'd put my own headphones in to listen to my music.
I
the fact that I couldn't hear my own music because
I'm not exaggerating. Both my headphones in, and you cannot hear your own music. So I actually just don't now. I don't listen to a podcast or anything.
You fucking love Linkin Park now.
I've just got obsessed with Linkin Park, and crawling in my skin.
I wouldn't have thought they'd be going for like Linkin Park stuff. It's usually like when we used to go to the gym, you'd be like, but
that's like Cardiff, a bit more chavvy. Bridgend is a bit more goth, a bit more emo-y, like not goth.
But you know the phase they went through, the very emo phase.
That's not. Yeah. But you know they used to have like it's a bit like you know, like emo-y, like, is emo the right word? It's all a bit like 10 years ago.
I know what you mean. Like it's millennials our age that grew up in the kind of emo age. It's much more chuffers back in the day would listen to a lot.
Yeah. So it is a lot of like Linkin Park, like Eminem. They've always got Eminem on. It is just pure millennial music that is like from the slightly like male.
I know what you mean. It's that thing of there's anger in me and I've got to let it out by lifting weights.
Yeah, you could tell they all put like Facebook statuses saying like, I protect my family more than
what's the classic? There's two dogs inside of you.
Two wolves within me.
Yeah, one of them. What is it? Fucking, it's like one of them.
The one I saw
yesterday and joy or something.
There's two wolves within me. One's gay, the other is gay, and they're both boyfriends.
I prefer that to the original. Yeah.
Go on, then. Tell me about your. Right. Oh, talking about two wolves within us. Today's episode is about two Welsh kings.
Two brothers.
I don't know anything about
this. Right? So, yes, they is about two brothers. Hang on, have I fucked that up already? No, it's fine. It's about two brothers, about Belinus and Brennius. Very confusing, but I will try my best not to confuse them when I'm reading this out. So, Beli Mawr in Welsh, or Belinus the Great, was a legendary king. Big belly, yeah, I know. Was a legendary king of the Britons around 390 BC. And son of the renowned lawgiver Dyfnwal Moelmead, or Dynvalw Molmutius, as he was known in Latin.
Mooting
him
out.
Yeah, he's mooting the lads out. Belinus and his story were preserved by friend of the pod and expert chronicler Geoffrey of Monmouth. Have you ever heard Geoffrey of Monmouth Welsh name? I don't think we've done it before, because when I saw it, I was like, I've not heard that.
Iagod?
No, Sieffre o Fynwy. Sieffre. What's Geoffrey in Welsh? Sieffre. Sieffre. It sounds made up, but it's Sieffre o Fynwy in Welsh, and his work on the Historia Regum Britanniae, or the history of the history of the kings of Britain. We reference him a lot on here because he was one of the few Welsh lads who actually bothered to write anything down. So he's often quoted on this pod. Also, anyone like me who's into the mythology side of things might notice that this guy shares a name with the Welsh god or hero from the old folk tales, also called Beli Mawr. These are different characters for the most part, but they do kind of overlap in some tales. But I'll touch on that a little bit later. In any case, for the sake of this episode, I'm going to call him Belinus, his Latin name, just to avoid confusion. Yeah,
it's a football reference you might not get.
No, I swiftly went past that. Then, yeah, it wasn't as good as fucking motting out boys, Molmotius. Anyway, Belinus was the ruler of what would become England, Wales, and Cornwall. But how did he end up on the throne? And what about the other bloke in the title, I hear you ask?
How hard it would be to rule that far back in like 300s.
You couldn't possibly know what was going on all the time, would you? Yeah. No. You just, when you said a decree or something, you just kind of have to hope that it got to the other edges.
The winds.
Yeah. And it would be absolute Chinese whispers by the end of it as well.
Can you say that anymore?
I just did.
Joking.
Right, so, when Belinus's father, Dyfnwal Moelmead, died, Belinus and his brother Brennius instantly clashed over which of them would succeed their father and rule the Brythonic lands. This devolved into a bit of a civil war on the island of Britannia, and with the first few years after Dyfnwal's death being marked with repeated battles between the two and the forces that backed them. Our scribe, I mentioned earlier, Geoffrey, describes these battles as particularly ferocious, as the Celts of the time were known for, but neither brother could gain a decisive victory over the other, despite meeting on the battlefield several times. After much bloodshed, the nearest and dearest to each brother counselled them that they tried some diplomacy instead of just gutting soldier after soldier, and eventually the brothers agreed on a compromise. Belinus, as the eldest son, would receive the title of King of the Britons and hold dominion over what was Loegria, Cambria, and Cornubia, or England, Wales, and Cornwall.
And in Welsh, we call Lloegr.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I was going to say. That's where it comes from. Loegria turned into Lloegr for the Welsh. And then Brennius, as the younger of the brothers, would take charge of Northumbria from the River Humber to Caithness. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Basically, it's the land right at the tippy top of modern Scotland. So it basically split the British Isles into, not British Isles, sorry, Britain, the main landmass, into a north and south. And Brennius would become Belinus's vassal. So he was like sort of subservient only to his brother, Belinus. If this is getting confusing with the Belinus versus Brennius, please let me know, because it is annoying. The island nation knew peace for 5 years, with both brothers upholding the Mulmutine laws their father had put in place on the land. These laws were: there are 3 tests of civil liberty, equality of rights, equality of taxation, freedom to come and go. 3 things are indispensable to a true union of nations: sameness of laws, rights, and language. There are 3 things free to all Britons: the forest, the unworked mine, and the right of hunting.
That's cool.
There are 3 property birthrights to every Briton: 5 British acres of land for a home, the right of suffrage in the enacting of laws, the male at 21, the female on her marriage.
What does that mean?
There are 3 things which... you can vote, basically, in what goes on in your sort of... It wouldn't be a constituency.
So men and women are allowed to vote?
Yeah.
Mad how,
I'll touch on how progressive some of these
how
were.
Progressive compared to... I was going to say how unprogressive Britain
modern
has been.
how much we regressed in the meantime.
700 years.
So the male would have these voting rights at 21, and the woman would only have them on a marriage.
Yeah.
There are 3 things which every Briton may legally be compelled to attend: the worship of God, military service, and the court of law. There are 3 things...
Was their God's Christian then, by then?
Some were. Christianity had made its way over here, but as I'll talk about a bit later, there was still a lot of reverence for, like Belinus, for example, was named after an old god of light from the Celtic mythology called Belinus. Yeah. And then Beli Mawr was that equivalent in Wales, basically. Yeah. There are 3 things free to every man, Briton, or foreigner. There are few of which no law will justify: water from spring, river, or well, firing from a decayed tree, or a block of stone not in use. And I looked into what firing from a decayed tree was. I thought it's basically just kindling.
Yeah.
There are 3 classes which exempt from bearing arms: bards, judges, graduates in law or religion. These represent God and his peace, and no weapons must ever be found in their hands.
When was this written?
This was around 3. It would be before 390. So Belinus ruled 390. These are the rules his dad put in, right? And I'll talk about now. But basically, these were put in, and they didn't change for a long, long time until Hoarvar came.
Yeah. So it's post-Roman Britain.
Yes, post-Roman Britain. So there was like Christianity was here, but Rome had left by this point. Let me just double check that is
382, wasn't it? The Romans left.
Yeah, so this was 390. So it wasn't long after they left. So there was still a bit of paganism around, but the sort of Christianity I got a foothold by quite a fair amount. What was the next one now? There are 3 persons who have a right of public maintenance: the old, the babe, the foreigner who cannot speak the British tongue. There are 3 things free to a country and its borders: the road, the rivers, and the places of worship. These are under the protection of God and his peace. So a side fact, as I just mentioned there, these laws would remain pretty much unchanged in Wales. In Britain, not so much, because when the Saxons and everything came over, that all changed in the kind of what would become England. But in Wales, these laws didn't really change too much until Hoarvar came along in the 10th century and updated them. But I'd say, like we just mentioned then, quite surprisingly progressive for laws that were 1,700 years ago.
And are these real people, or are they legendary?
I talk about that a bit later. They are kind of real, but I talk about that. But Geoffrey Monmouth is known for his what's the word, poetic license in his works. But I sort of talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, talk about it a bit later.
Yeah, I'll talk about it a bit later, mate. I'll talk about it a bit later, no problem. So, despite adhering to these laws for 5 years, the peace they knew collapsed when Brennius travelled to Norway and was persuaded by his advisors to marry the daughter of the Norwegian king without seeking Belinus's permission. Yes, as a vassal lord, that is actually a big no-no to get married without your liege lord's permission. Excuse me. and this royally pissed off Belinus. Belinus gathered a massive army and marched north, seizing Brennius' cities and garrisoning them with his own troops. When Brennius heard of this, he set sail with his fleet, his new wife, and several Norwegian ships to take the battle to his brother back on his home turf. What Brennius didn't know was that the King of Denmark, who was infatuated with the Norwegian princess, decided to chase the newly married princess with his own fleet. The Danish king's ship attacked Brennius' fleet on the open sea and managed to kidnap his new bride before they all reached Britain. Does that make sense, by the way, if I said that? Yeah, clear enough. In a weird turn of fate, the Danish force was blown ashore by a storm in the north of modern England, and Belinus' fourth... let me say again, I keep fucking... It's because I'm saying Belinus and Brennius constantly. I'm fucking stumbling over my words. In a weird turn of fate, this Danish force was blown ashore by a storm in the north of modern England, and Belinus' forces discovered them. They killed many Danes, but took the Danish king and Brennius' new Norwegian bride hostage. Brennius reached the shores of Alba, or Scotland, with barely the forces he'd left with, and after many of his own men and the added Norwegian forces were killed in the Danish attack at sea. Despite this embarrassing turn of events, he demanded Belinus give his lands back, or he swore he'd kill him the next time they met. Belinus refused and marched his army to meet Brennius at Calaterium. I looked into what this is. I thought it might be, like an old Latin name for a modern city, but it wasn't. It was the Latin name for a massive ancient forest that was in Celtic Britain in the sort of north of what is England now. So they were fighting a forest, which I thought was unusual, because you usually think of these battles on like an open field, but at this kind of time...
Yeah, it's not cultivated.
Yeah, Wales was mainly like ancient woodland type thing.
Yeah, Britain had foot covered in it.
Yeah. So the two armies met there and they engaged in a bloody battle. But because of the Brennius' weakened forces, Belinus finally dealt a decisive blow against his brother, forcing him to flee to Gaul in exile and leave Belinus as the king of all Britain. Those who don't know, Gaul is like the original land of the Celts. Just like covers modern day like France, a little bit of Germany.
Yeah.
It's a big sort of plot of land over in Europe. Brennius eventually married Segnius' daughter, and with this new seat of power, he raised a Gallic army and set his eyes once again on defeating his brother. Absolutely cannot let it go. Just has to go back and fucking scrap with his bro again. The two gathered bigger armies than ever before, and Brennius sailed to Britain with his men. It was on the battlefield that Belinus and Brennius' mother supposedly begged both his sons to stop the bloodshed and make peace with one another. They both reluctantly agreed and went back to their old arrangement of ruling the north and the south for Brennius and Belinus, respectively. This probably seems a tad dramatic, but as I said earlier, Joffrey of Monmouth he liked to zhuzh things up a little bit in his stories. Bullshit. It was probably a lot more like diplomatically handled than that, but that would make a better scene in a movie, wouldn't it, if you think about it that way? So you're probably thinking, oh, let me guess, one of the brothers starts a scrap again and sets the whole brother thing over again. But you'd be wrong. This latest act of reconciliation actually let the two brothers team up for real this time and set their eyes eastward to the continent. The brothers, now both with huge armies, combined them into one of the largest Britain had ever fielded and crossed the Channel to invade Gaul. Over 2 years of bloody victories, they brought the Frankish kingdoms of Gaul to heel and forced them to submit and become tributaries to the crown of Britain. After earning a big W in Gaul, they decided they'd have a pop at the big boy itself, Rome. They marched their armies across the Alps and into modern-day Italy, right on Rome's doorstep. The Roman consuls, Gabius and Porsenna, they sued for peace with Belinus and Brennius, offering tribute and high-value hostages to avoid Rome's destruction. The two Brythonic kings agreed the terms, but the desire for more conquered lands wasn't spent just yet. After the surrender of the Italian peninsula, the brothers led their army into what would become North Germany, encountering a hardy resistance from local tribes, as well as what was left of the forces they defeated in Italy. The two brothers looked like they were gaining the upper hand when a betrayal by the Romans forced the army to split. The Romans had broken the peace treaty they'd made and sent an army north in hopes of beating the Brythonic brothers while they were engaged against the German and Italians. So they're trying to do like a pincer movement, basically, while they were sort of fighting the German-Italian coalition, if you like. They were going to come up from the south and batter them from both angles. At least that was the plan. Brennius took half the forces and marched to meet the Romans, while Belinus stayed to continue the fight in the Germanic campaign. As Brennius departed, the Italian forces assisting Germany attempted to withdraw and join up with the approaching Romans, but Belinus learned of their plans and ambushed them in a mountain valley. The Italians took huge casualties from the offset, and Belinus chased them down as they retreated for a whole day, chipping away at every man until there was none left. I should probably clarify as well. When I'm saying like Italians, Germans, Romans, by the way, it's just then. These didn't exist then. I'm just trying to make it easier to understand. These are all like several different tribes. Like even the Germans weren't a united front; they were Germanic tribes. But I'm just trying to make it easier to picture in terms of the forces and from where you got me.
Big baby.
So, without the Italian reinforcements, the Romans were battered by Brennius and his army and sent scattering in retreat. For the insult of marching against them, Brennius fought his way to the city of Rome and besieged it. The Roman city was a tough nut to crack and managed to keep Brennius' forces at bay until Belinus arrived with his half of the army to support. Despite the overwhelming force at the gates, the Romans still managed to defend their city and keep the Britons out. Belinus, looking to crush their morale, had the hostages that they'd been gifted during the peace talks hung in front of the Roman army for all to see. This actually had the opposite effect that he wanted. This actually enraged the Romans, pushed them to fight harder, and they even spilled out from the city gates to fight the Britons face to face, and they caused massive casualties to the Celtic army. Belinus, though, he managed to reform his lines, get his forces under control, in just enough time to repel the Roman attack. They struck back, and now because the gates were open, they managed to breach the walls of the city. They even sacked Rome and eventually ransomed it back to the greater Roman Empire for the very steep price of £1,000 of gold, as in the weight, obviously, not Great British pounds. According to the legends, the Romans were forced to pile the gold on a great scale to ensure they kept their word. And apparently Brennius threw his sword atop the pile of gold, saying "Vae Victis," or "Woe to the conquered." It would be the last time Rome was ever taken by a non-Roman army for 800 years. So it was quite the big deal. That actually happened. That's a real thing that happened. Yeah, Brennius. You can look it up, mate.
How do you spell Brennius?
Brennis. It's sometimes just Brennus instead of the "us" at the
There's
end.
a film. Have you seen the film Brennus, Enemy of Rome?
No, I assume it's quite old.
Yeah, 1963.
Yeah, but it's genuinely happened. It's considered like I was reading something earlier, and it was like I didn't include this in my notes, but it really warped the way Rome thought of itself after that, and they went proper military. It explains a lot why they were very if you in the later years of the declining Roman Empire, if you were in charge of the soldiers, you were essentially in charge of Rome because their military doctrine had become so advanced, and they become a real sort of military focused nation after that because they've been battered basically. But anyway, after this, Belinus left his brother to tend to Rome because they'd sacked Rome now. He said, well, why don't you have Rome or Gaul? Take your pick. And Belinus was going to go back to Britain and be king of the entirety of Britain. Now he didn't have to share his kingdom with his brother. So he left back for Britain. Now, some sources say that Brennius was defeated shortly after by a Roman leader called Camillus or Camilla, something like that. I did have this here. It's autocorrected annoyingly. I think it was Camillus. Others say he went back to Gaul and celebrated with his spoils and whatnot. But in any case, Belinus was the king of Britain. He carried on enforcing the laws his father set down. And he even founded Caerusc, which would become Caerleon, and apparently made Celtic Britain more wealthy than it had ever been before. So there we are. That's the tale of the two Brythonic brothers that hammered Rome.
So are they idea that some people think they're Brythonic, some people think they're other parts of Celtic Europe?
Yeah. So what it was is Brennius. He was Belinus's brother.
Yeah.
And remember, he got exiled to Gaul. He became leader of a Celtic tribe in Gaul. That's how he had that massive army to come back to Britain and challenge his brother with. And then together they all went across. Like I said earlier, there is chopping and changing between how historically accurate and how mythological this stuff is, or folk tale-y, because of what's his name, Gerald de Cambria.
Yeah.
He tells a bit of tall tales and whatnot. For example, there's some sources that say like Belinus wasn't nearly as involved with the stuff with Rome at all, and that's like a way of getting like a Brythonic / Welsh, whatever you want to call it, king into the mix to get a bit of the glory and things like that. And then there was, like I said before, Belimawd was a god, was like a sun god in the Welsh Celtic pantheon. So later on, people would claim, you know how like people would claim that they were descended from Magnus Maximus?
Yeah.
Maxim Ledig. People would say the same thing. They'd be like, oh, I'm descended from Belimawd, the sun god, aka the guy who helped conquer Rome and things like that. So it became like merged with history. It's like history and mythology kind of merging together.
There's little sneaky mergers.
But I thought that was pretty cool because I was like, how haven't I heard this before? And then I checked. I was like, how tall a tale is this that old Gerald is fucking telling?
Yeah.
And then no, it's true that Brennius did conquer, and he was the last one to do it for 800 years, which is quite the feat.
From it looks like, he might have been from a Gael or from like modern day France rather than Britain in the historical version.
Gaulish.
Gaulish. Brennius. I like that, mate. That's very, very interesting. I might do a little bit of extra.
I love a bit of Celticness. I actually originally started doing it on just Belinus because he's more focused on Wales, like with Carleon and all that. And then because I was like reading all this Brennius, I was like, a bit of Brennius, let me have a look into it. And then I was like, I got to do it on both because both the stories are just so like entwined. But that's the story. That's essentially the story that was in the History of the Kings of Britain by Gerald of Monmouth.
Nice. All right. Well, a lot of bit of that.
Well, a lot of it, Gerald's work.
We keep forgetting to push the Patreon recently, so we should get back to that. If you got this far, consider joining the Patreon, which is 2 episodes a month plus loads of other nonsense.
And from now on, you as well. From recently, you get to see our beautiful mugs.
Yes, we are now live. You can actually,
you can see us doing gestures, making faces, and doing all that sort of stuff. It's bloody great.
Right, well, Diolch yn gwrando, we got another episode to record, so we'll look at it later.
Diolch pawb.